Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast episode. My name is Alicia Gogan, the host of the Glow Up Secrets podcast, where I help you expand your mind and become more self-aware so that you can glow up into the best version of yourself. All right, guys, I am pre-recording this episode, so when you listen to this episode, I will be in Calgary, living my best coastal cowgirl life. So if you aren't following me on Instagram, definitely go check out my Instagram, Alicia Gogan, so you can see what I've been up to. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not really done up that much. Didn't do my hair, just threw on this t-shirt. I literally just came from the coffee shop. I was considering going to the gym, but then I was like, okay, I need to charge my AirPods. So maybe as they're charging, I'll just record this episode. And I also had I had an example of something that I can use within this podcast happen this morning, or I was discussing something with my friend this morning, I should say, regarding relationships. And I think I can totally use that. And so I was like, I think today needs to be the day that I record this, but we need to talk about how to have healthier relationships, because realistically on this glow up journey, if you are new here, we have a series going on this summer all about how to glow up into the best version of yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally, all of it, spiritually, everything. And we need to talk about relationships. And I think that a lot of us really struggle with having healthy relationships. There's so much misinformation online. Relationships in general are just hard to navigate. And I want to talk about some of the things to help you with developing healthy relationships with others. I will say that this information, I'm going to use examples when it comes to intimate relationships. And for me, I date men. So dating men, you can obviously apply this to the opposite. And also you can apply this when it comes to friendships and stuff. But we're going to be talking more about our intimate relationships. Now, one of the things that I think a lot of us don't put enough emphasis on when it comes to having healthy relationships is becoming aware of who we are in relationships, what our needs and what our wants are. A lot of the times in society, we go out and we date and we put a lot of focus on the man. We put a lot of focus on what they want or what we should, how we should act in relationships. Everyone's saying there's this standard, there's that standard. You have to say these things. You have to play this game, this, that, and the third. But the thing is everyone is so unique and so different, and we all have our own relational history based off of our past and our earliest childhood memories. And our memories, our relationships towards our parents, siblings, school, they really form who we are as people now and how we show up in relationships. And we need to know what our needs and what our wants, what are the things that we didn't get in childhood, what are the things that we value. We need to know these things so that when we go out and when we go date, we can obviously express our needs and our wants, and we don't take things so personally if things don't work out in relationships, because we understand, okay, maybe we're not compatible. But I think a lot of the times, you have the story of who you should be and what you should want in relationships. And then when you go into a relationship and things don't work out, you might think that it's you might be thinking that it's them and they're the problem, when really there's just a lot of incompatibilities. But there's honestly a lot of incompatibilities a lot of the times with people because they don't know themselves. They don't know what they really need and what they want. So I want to talk about some of those things and how to kind of explore who you are in relation to other people, because I really do think the more you know yourself, the more you're able to navigate relationships, you're able to navigate life in general, because you know what you want, what you don't, what you need, what you don't need. So I actually took this masterclass. It's actually called Masterclass. I'm sure maybe some of you guys have heard of it online. Very good self-development platform if you are looking to learn anything about communication and relationships or personal branding. They have so many experts in different fields where they give you essentially a masterclass. And one of the ones that I watched was from Esther Perels. I think that's how you say her last name, but I've read some of her books. I've listened to her podcast. She is transformative when it comes to somebody who really understands relationships. I believe she's some sort of psychotherapist. She's a therapist, essentially. She works with couples, families, things of that nature, whatever. She really understands relationships from a very healthy perspective. And I like her take because she talks about the human desire in both men and women when it comes to having freedom, but also still being kind of domesticated in a way. And I know that's not really the right word, but it technically is. It's like a lot of us, we want security, we want commitment, we want protection, we want all these things, especially women, right? But on the other hand, we do have this desire to go and explore and be free. And how do we have that healthy balance within a relationship towards another person, also towards ourselves? So she really talks about the ebb and flow of honestly human desire and going out and feeling free and doing whatever you want, but also still having more of that monogamous relationship that a lot of us still crave. Essentially, she really teaches people how to have healthy, secure attachment styles. If you guys don't know what attachment styles are, there's many of them. If I'm going to be talking about any of them, I will be referring to anxious attachment styles and avoidant attachment styles because I do think that those are the most prevalent. There is a book called The Power of Attachment, which is very, very good. I forget the author's name, but I will have it linked in the show notes if you're interested in attachment styles. But anyways, I watched her masterclass and she starts off with really understanding yourself and your history when it comes to being able to actually have healthy relationships. So I made a bunch of notes. So we're going to go through them a little bit. And this is something that you can journal on and something that I was able to think about as she was going through this, but I definitely have explored a lot of these questions that she had posed to the audience. And I think these questions are so good because it really can help you navigate relationships. So first question she had was, what is your family history like? And I think this is important to understand because you tend to be usually like your parents or your family dynamic, or you could be completely opposite. But for instance, my family, aka my household, let's actually use household instead of family because family can be very, very broad. But my household, we were very to ourselves. And I don't mean like I was to myself and my mom was to herself and my dad was to himself, which he kind of was. But like obviously within our household, we communicated and we were like a family as healthy as we could be or not, whatever. But in general, like we kind of were a close-knit, closed off family. We did our own thing. My parents definitely did their own thing. Like they definitely were like the best friend type of couple. Like they went out and they socialized, but at the end of the day, like they didn't have like all of these extended family members coming in and giving them input on the relationship. They didn't have a lot of friends that were like always coming around the house and chilling and, you know, very open household, things like that. There wasn't like these huge family ties. We were just very to ourselves. And I realized like that's how I am in my life. Like I am somebody who is more introverted. I am not really an extroverted person, although I absolutely can be. And that's something that my parents were like too. Like they could be social if they wanted to, but in general on a day-to-day basis, they're kind of more introverted, kind of kept to themselves, like did their own thing. And it's important to know if you're kind of more that introverted type of person or that extroverted type of person, because okay, well now when you go out and you date or you're in relationships, you can start to see how, okay, will this person be compatible with me or not, considering I know myself and I am this introverted person or I am this extroverted person. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to stay introverted if you were taught to kind of be introverted, but for me, I like being that introverted type of like keeping things to myself. Obviously, I've had to learn how to open up sometimes. That's very healthy, but that's the dynamic that I feel safe in. That's the dynamic that I kind of want. And so if I go out and I meet a guy who I feel like there's something off, well, I can kind of check, is this person an introvert like me? Or is this person always wanting to party and wanting to go to vacations and wanting to do all these things? And it's fine if they do, but it's like, how are they in relation to that vacation? Like, are they somebody who wants to just go party every single night and go out and meet a bunch of people? Or on vacation, are they somebody who wants to lay by the cabanas and have a drink and be with his girl and just kind of relax and listen to music? Okay, well, that's more my type of guy. Doesn't mean that I can't be with somebody who like wants to party all the time, but most likely that might cause some issues. And so when you are constantly fighting with somebody, let's say you guys go on vacations all the time and like he's wanting to do completely opposite things, it's not again to be like, oh, we have to break up, but it's just to look and being like, are we even compatible? Because realistically, I'm an introvert and I want to live this certain way. And it seems like you are completely different. We don't need to demonize. We don't need to be mad at the fact that this person is different. It's just to look at the fact that we are different human beings. And this doesn't mean that I have to tell you that you're a bad person or you're wrong because you want to go party or you want to do these extroverted things. Simply, I've been taught, and this is how I like to be, which is a little bit more low key. So what is your family history? What was your household dynamic? Do you like it? Do you want to change it? What is that? Just becoming curious. Because again, you have all of your relationships that you have right now, even the relationship towards yourself, is all based off of the relationships that you've experienced in the past. So if you're having trouble being in relationships, having healthy relationships, you need to look back at your history. Another question that she had asked was, do you seek security or freedom? Now, this is something so important for you to understand about yourself, but also to be able to see it within other people. And for me, I'm going to just say, see it in men. Now, obviously, it's important to know, like, do you want more secure relationships, aka do you want to be in a monogamous relationship, let's say, or do you want more freedom and you want to kind of like either you're like open relationships or you just want to explore, obviously depends on the stage of your life as well, but it's way deeper than you just being at a certain age, like I'm in my 20s, I want to have freedom, this, that. No, it actually does come down to the relationships that you had towards your parents. So let me just give you an example of like what I want and why I want it. When I was young, I absolutely wanted freedom, which is in most cases, a lot of kids want that. At a certain age, if your parents are very overbearing, you're going to want freedom. You're going to naturally want to go and explore and just like have total freedom. And for me personally, I honestly felt like a slave when I was around my father. So I really wanted freedom. Now, I wanted probably too much freedom because I had too much security, and it wasn't even healthy security, right? I basically felt like I was in jail. So when you feel like you're in jail, what are you going to want? You're going to want freedom 10 times more than it's like a natural, normal thing. It's normal for us to want to have freedom and to play. And now I'm talking about a healthy, secure attachment, by the way. Like a secure attached person that has a healthy relationship with themselves and other people, they naturally will want to go out and play, but they also will want to come back. But when you feel like you are in a jail cell, you don't want to come back from that. And in fact, the freedom seems so much better and so much like all you want is that freedom. Same way as when you go on a diet, instantly you want that cake 10 times more instead of just knowing that you can have it whenever you want. So really, it's important to see some of your dynamics with your earliest caregivers or whoever you were around to see, okay, why is it that I want so much freedom? Or why is it that I want so much security? Because this is what also happened to me. When my father passed away, and I kind of grew out of that wanting so much freedom, I got to a point where I became very financially stressed. My mother wasn't able to support me. She wasn't really around. I lost that masculine structure in my life, even though it wasn't that healthy. So I started to seek a lot of security. Again, not a bad thing. We all need it. But I got to a point where I was in fight or flight all the time. All I wanted was I stressed about everything. I stressed about money. I stressed about my life, which again, understandable because I was in a state of literal, yes, I have to stress about these things in a way, but it became too much to the point where I was such a stress case that I would catastrophize everything. I would literally be worried all the time. I would have so much anxiety. I'd be overthinking everything to the point where literally I had chronic diseases. I was very, very unhealthy. And that's also not a good place to be at. But what I really just needed was a little bit more security in my life. But sometimes what we do in relationships, we don't understand just how much we might be operating out of this place of scarcity because of our childhood. And then we expect our significant other to provide us all of this security. And no matter what, usually doesn't even end up helping, because when you're in scarcity, nothing really actually makes you more secure until you start to heal, really. But this is where our relationships start to go unhealthy, because we're expecting somebody to provide us security in which we never even got in childhood. Again, it's not a bad thing that you might need a little bit more reassurance. You might need a little bit more security. And of course, it's okay that you want, let's say, a monogamous relationship from somebody. That's fine. But it really is about rebalancing certain things in your life. So, how can I add some more masculine structure and more security within my life without asking somebody else to do it for me? How can I bring more of that into my life and not just get it from my significant other? Same thing goes if you really want freedom. Okay, well, there might be a part of you that still wants a relationship. Well, you have to understand that you being in this free flowing whatever, you're not going to be able to be in a monogamous relationship if you're acting like you just want to be free all the time. But also in general, it's important for you to know whether you want more freedom or you want more security, because also you don't have to change this part of you like crazy, right? You might naturally, you're going to be somebody who wants a little bit more freedom or a little bit more security. Now, this is important because you're going to go out in the world and there's going to just be some people who want that freedom. Okay, well, if you're somebody who leans more to wanting security, you're going to be struggling with trying to be in a relationship with somebody who clearly wants freedom. And especially if they know they want freedom and they don't want to change that about them at all, then it's like you keep pushing against a brick wall. You're trying to date somebody who is clearly incompatible for you. And I think a lot of the times, especially women, they don't understand who it is that they're dating when it comes to, does this man want freedom or security? Now, I will say, I really do think a lot more men lean towards wanting that freedom, especially if they have a lot of responsibility. And especially though, if they've already come from a family where there was a lot of suffocating in a way, like the mom is always like mothering him and like dad's always telling him what to do. Again, it's not really a bad thing. It's just to understand, okay, well, this person most likely is going to grow up wanting a lot more freedom. And so you might think that it's like them wanting to literally not be with you. But if you understand that person, okay, well, maybe they just need a little bit more freedom, more time, more space. And again, you want to make sure that this person would even be compatible for you, because there are men who just want freedom to the point where I want to sleep with everyone. I don't want a commitment. Obviously, we're not talking about those men, but understanding your partner and realizing, okay, no wonder you want a little bit of freedom. I don't have to even take it personally, because it's not personal. It's you wanting to live out a desire that you really weren't fully able to live out throughout your childhood. And the same thing can be said when it comes to security. There's a level of just wanting to be secure in relationships, and there's a level of you just having an anxious attachment style. And when you are anxiously attached and when you need somebody to validate you and to tell you that they're there and to not leave you, on one hand, that's not necessarily a bad thing to want to have somebody want you and validate you. But I find a lot of women who are anxiously attached, they have these high standards of what this man should be doing. Let's say texting you all the time and constantly telling you where he's at and all of these things. But it's like half or more than half of the reason why you just want those texts anyways is really out of a place of trauma, is really out of a place of your anxious attachment style. And understanding that that's not a healthy state to be in, is to be anxious all the time. Now, this is not to say, of course, you want to be with a partner who sends you a text and lets you know like where they're at, even if they have a busy day, and not go ghost for 3 days. Like obviously that's a normal, healthy thing, but you have to ask yourself the question, well, if I need somebody who to constantly text me all day and to tell me how much they like me and to like always be there, that is really not healthy, because why is it that you can't sustain that on your own? Why can't you trust that this person is going to be there for you at the end of the day or whenever it is? But when we don't know ourselves and we don't know we're anxiously attached or we need more freedom or security, when we don't get what we want, we just yell at the other person. We just tell them that they need to do more. You need to text me more. You need to do this. Okay, well, why is it that you want somebody to text you all of the time, constantly updating you, constantly just like being in your phone and like complimenting you or doing whatever? And a lot of that is because you are anxious, you are insecure, and you need that constant validation to make you feel safe. Well, that is not a healthy way to live life. You should naturally be feeling quite at ease even when your partner is away working or not texting you. This comes back to having a healthy, secure attachment style. A secure attachment style is basically this. When you are a child and you're with your parent and you're going to the park, when you see a bunch of kids playing, you naturally want to go and play. You want to have fun. You want to like go explore, right? Someone with a secure attachment style is going to maybe look at mom or dad and be like, can I go play? Like, I really want to go play. Like, oh my gosh. And then the parent says, yes, go play. And you are going to trust that you can go play and that your parent is going to be there. And so when you go play, your head is not thinking about, is mom or dad still there? Are they still going to like me when I come back? Am I a bad person because I went and played? Oh my God, X, Y, and Z. You go, you play, you have an amazing time. Your mind is not on your parents. Your mind is literally with children right now, or whatever it is you're doing. And when the time is up to just like not be free anymore, like, okay, I want to come back to like solidarity, and I want to come back to comfort and security, I'm going to come back because it's a natural desire for me to want to leave that freedom for a moment after I've had enough. I want to come back to my parents, and I know my parents are going to be right there, and I'm going to feel safe and calm. That's ebbing and flowing through security and freedom. But unfortunately, a lot of us did not have that relationship with our caregivers. We literally, sometimes our parents just left us. And I don't actually mean at the park, but whatever, you can apply this to any situation. But let's say our parent just wasn't there, or they told us to go, or they told us to go play when we weren't ready, or we didn't feel safe enough in that environment, but they said, go do it anyways. Or again, they weren't there when we came back, or sometimes they were there, sometimes they weren't. That was my situation. Sometimes my dad would pick me up, sometimes he wouldn't. When he would tell me he was going to come pick me up at a certain time, he'd be late all the time. And it's no wonder that you end up being this anxious person, because you have been taught to not know whether your parent is going to come and pick you up right now, or not know if somebody's going to show up for you. And then on top of that, what we do is we internalize that, and then we think, oh my God, it must be me. Like, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I'm not worthy of dad coming to pick me up every single day. There has to be a reason. Like, we come to these conclusions at very young ages. And then on top of that, we learn to repeat these same attachment styles with friends, with lovers, with everything, and even towards ourselves. When somebody doesn't show up consistent for us in our lives, we learn to not even value consistency at all, or discipline. And what can also happen is we start to have that relationship towards ourselves. We don't show up for ourselves. We don't value ourselves. We don't love ourselves, because we have been taught that that is how it is. And realistically, it's not you. It never was you, because this is what happens is your parents also have attachment styles. Your parents also might have been avoidant or distant or anxious or X, Y, and Z, and could only do so much. So again, it's just to really understand your history. Understand how you show up in relationships. Is there things that you can self-correct in a way? How can I be a little less anxious in my relationships? Well, one is going to be making sure that I'm with a partner who understands my needs and wants, and I have to understand who this partner even is. Is he somebody who's very, very avoidant and doesn't really want to communicate? Okay, well, that might not be good for my anxious attachment. But on top of that, it doesn't mean you can never be with a guy who usually tends to lean on the avoidance sometimes, because what you will find is once you do work more on your anxious attachment, you will find yourself needing less and less reassurance from somebody. Now, another thing that she was talking about in the masterclass was, are you raised for more autonomy or loyalty? So essentially, are you really all about yourself more, or do you put other people first more? Now, I think what's important to know is why it is you are more autonomous or you're more loyal. And usually it's some sort of trauma response in a way. There's always light and dark sides to everything. So you could just be a naturally loyal person, and that's just who you are, and that's great. And it's not really this trauma response. But a lot of the times, the reason why, let's say, women will be extra loyal is actually a fawn response. And a fawn response from the nervous system episode that we talked about is really you trying to people please, you trying to not rock the boat by always showing up and always being there and always being a good girl, never making mistakes, because you learn how to do that around a parent. But of course, that's not really a healthy state to be in, because you are a human being, and like, it shouldn't be that you're always adjusting and micro adjusting really to somebody's emotional fluctuations of life. And really, you should have certain needs and wants that need to be taken into consideration before someone else as well. It shouldn't always be, no matter what, this person is on this pedestal and I'm all the way down here. But that's usually how you have learned to be in relationships. So then you show up as this very extra loyal person. And again, it's not a bad thing to be loyal. It's not. You're going to naturally fall on one side or the other. But in general, when you are to the point where somebody can be hurting you, somebody can be literally disrespecting you, and you're still going to be loyal, like, that's when you want to look at why am I like this? This is not healthy. And then on the other side, being autonomous. Autonomy can move into selfishness very, very quickly. And I will be very honest with you guys and say, I was very autonomous, AKA I was very self-centered and very selfish when I grew up. But that was also out of a trauma response because I learned to not really value relationships for many reasons. One being the family dynamic that I grew up in, but also I was in such survival mode that I really had no time to care about other people. I had to care about how I was making money, how I was going through college, how I was getting my health issues like worked out and fixed, really. And so unfortunately, my relationship suffered. I didn't put a lot of emphasis and time about caring about other people. I cared about being autonomous. I cared about being just myself, but not a healthy autonomous, not just being able to like be on my own. It was basically this mentality of everyone for themselves. Like there was no taking consideration of other people. And realistically, if you think about a family system, a family dynamic that's healthy, a healthy community, you're always making sure that those people in your community are being brought in and you're taking care of other people and other people are taking care of you. But I didn't have that. I never valued family. I never really valued relationships. But as I got older and I healed a lot of my anxious attachment styles, not styles, but I healed my anxious attachment style and moving from scarcity and survival into more abundant and trusting and just healing energy, I tapped into the desire within me that does want to connect, that does want family, that does want to take care of other people. But it's sometimes hard to do that when you are literally in survival mode. And so again, understanding why it is you are the way that you are and learning, okay, can I self-correct a little bit? And how, if I self-correct, will that allow me to have the actual relationship that deep down I'm really wanting? Because again, there was a deep desire for me to actually have family and to take care of people. And I want to care about people. Obviously, I'm much different now, but like I really want to take care of people, but I just couldn't do it. And I couldn't do it because I was in survival. It's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you're just this one way and like you can't change. Again, this is gonna be up to you if you want to change or not, but there's usually some sort of desire once you start to become aware of how you are in relationships of wanting to, care for other people and not be so one way. But I think what can help when it comes to change is changing out of a place of exploration for yourself and who you are in your story and changing out of a place of self-love versus self-hate. Because what we do when we realize, oh my gosh, I've been this selfish person. Oh my God, I'm so bad. Like I have to change. Like I need to care about people more. But if you don't know why you're even like that, you trying to change from a place of shame won't last. And it usually won't last, especially if you're in scarcity anyways, because you'll always pick survival out of anything else. Even when it comes to you wanting to be free more or you want to be more loyal, even if you realize you being super, super loyal to somebody who disrespects you and you realize that that's not healthy, you're still going to do that if you're operating out of a place of trauma because your trauma response is your survival mechanism. That's how you survive. Even though you might look at it and be like, oh my God, no, being loyal to default can be really bad for me. Like, look at all the ways that it's so bad. Like I have to stop. Well, there's a part of you that is convinced that being loyal is the way to keep you safe because you've learned how to do that in your childhood. And so if you want to change that part of you, to change it from a place of being like, this is so effed up, like I need to change now, it's not really going to work. Okay, another thing that she had asked in the class, which I think is so good, but she had asked, what stories are you telling about yourself when it comes to you in relation to other people? Because this is really important. Especially if you are going through your past and you're seeing your attachment styles and you're seeing your traumas and all of these things. Okay, we can use that information to self-correct in a way, to heal, to show up differently in relationships. But at the end of the day, we don't want to use that story or stories as the reason why we don't get what we want in our lives, especially when it comes to relationships. So I'm going to give you a few of the stories that I was stuck in. And some of them I was holding these stories on before I really knew my attachment style and like all of my trauma and how my earliest childhood relationships were like the same as the ones that I was having. And then also, even after I did a lot of self-reflection, one of them was I suck at connecting with other human beings or like suck at connecting with men in general because I had a very hard time with being myself authentically with men because I struggled to do that even with my father because I felt like I couldn't because I really kind of couldn't. And so I kept telling myself that story like it was so hard and I can't be myself. And no matter how many times I get into relationships and I try, I keep failing. Like having that story is not going to actually help you become better at connecting with men. Like, this is not to say that maybe you suck at connecting with men because you don't know how to be authentic because you feel afraid or you feel like you can't be authentic, but you also don't want to tell yourself that story, because what's going to happen is it's going to be 10 times harder for you to actually try to be your authentic self and take off that mask in relation to men, to the point where, yeah, one little thing happens, or let's say you have an opportunity to be a little bit more vulnerable in a relationship and then you don't do it because maybe you got scared. Then if you start telling yourself the story of like, see, like I just can't do it and this, that, well, then you're never going to get good. And this is the thing, when you are trying to be a better person in relationships, you're trying not to let your anxiety really take over, your traumas take over, you're not going to be perfect with it. You're going to stumble uphill. You're going to make a mistake. When you make mistakes, or when you see that you've been acting a little bit out of your anxious attachment style a little bit too much, forgive yourself, self-correct. Don't tell yourself, see, I can never do it. And oh my gosh, relationships are so hard. And I know it can be very, very difficult. Another story that kind of piggybacks off that same one, once I started to become very self-aware of how I am in relation to men mainly, but even friendships as well. I didn't have like the best friendships. Like, I did my absolute best, but I would just tell myself like, I'm the one that doesn't get to be normal, doesn't get to be herself, doesn't get to be authentic. I am too awkward. It is going to be too hard. It is going to take me too long. And I don't know how it is that I'm ever going to actually be myself in relationships. Like, those are the stories I was constantly telling myself. And I think Esther wrote this. I'm not sure. I have it written here, so I don't know if she said it or what, but you really have to break up with this story. Okay. When you are aware of who you have been in relationships, if you want healthier relationships, you have to believe that you can have them, okay? Understand that most people don't have healthy attachment styles. They are trying to navigate relationships as much as they can. People in marriage, like, come on, everyone usually has relationship issues, okay? But you need to stop telling yourself the story that you can't change, that you can't have what you want. It is going to take practice. It is going to take you being aware of who you are and to self-correct, but you can have better relationships. The more I heal, the more I work on myself, the more I become self-aware, the more I really analyze how I show up, and I ask myself questions as to, why did I just act like that? Why did I just get triggered from that? What can I do to change this that has nothing to do with me trying to change somebody else in a relationship? The more times that I've done that, the healthier my relationships have been, the better my communication has been. But the thing is, when we want to fix anything in our lives, we are so black and freaking white with things. We just think, okay, next relationship, it's going to be healthy, and I'm going to look for a healthy man, and I'm going to be in a healthier person. Yeah, until you get in a relationship and this person triggers the F out of your attachment style or your traumas or your whatever. And you have to constantly work on these things. It's not going to be like tomorrow you wake up and you're just deciding you're going to be in a healthy relationship with a secure person, especially if somebody is in a more secure attachment style, or let's say they are avoidant. There's going to be things that come up in your relationship where you're going to have to, in that moment, work with yourself. And a lot of people will say this, you know what? It's too hard. I'm just going to heal on my own, and I'm just going to work on myself. Now, of course, there's always room for you to like take some time for yourself. Maybe you've been somebody who's constantly in relationships and they haven't been working out and they're very toxic or whatever. Like, maybe you have to learn how to have that relationship with yourself. Realistically, the relationship you have with yourself is a very big reflection of what you're seeing on that outside world as well, especially in relationships, romantic as well. But there is a lot to be said about you healing in relationships. This is the thing. And I was talking to my friend Joey about this last night, actually. When people realize they have crappy relational dynamics, what they want to do is they want to say, screw it, I'm not going to have relationships until I either heal myself completely, which is an illusion, or in general, they're just like, I'm not going to do it. Okay, well, let's be real. Everything is relational, and eventually you're going to want to be in a relationship, okay? If you want to be single for the rest of your life, then this advice is not for you. So we can't go to the extreme and say we don't want to ever be in relationships. And I'm going to use an analogy of a car. What has happened to you in your life is this. You got a car that was not really working the best, and you tried to drive that car, and unfortunately that car drove you into a wall. That car broke down. That car did not get you from A to B to C. Maybe it got you from A to Z. It was very messy. It was very chaotic. It wasn't the best experience driving the car. It's the same thing as you being in unhealthy relationships. Okay, things happened. Maybe you got hurt. Maybe whatever happened, okay? But instead of wanting to just upgrade the car and to look at why it was breaking down in the first place and and searching for a better car or saving money for a better car, or like doing whatever, what we do is we just say, I don't want to drive at all. I do not want to drive a car at all. I don't even want to drive. I'm just never going to drive ever. But it's like, realistically, no, you're going to need to drive eventually. Now, we're not obviously going to think about the fact that you can take transit and you can do Ubers and other people can drive for you, this, that. No. Okay, let's just assume that there's no Ubers or transportation. You're going to need to drive a car. In fact, you're going to have to learn how to even be a good driver. And you weren't really able to even learn how to be a good driver in this car because this car was not equipped to allow you to be able to be the best driver you could be. And the same thing goes in relationships. Like, you've had shitty relationships, yes, but in order for you to have a better driving experience, aka a better experience in relationships, you need to find a person who is healthier. You need to show up a better way. You also need to look for things in which will help you in that relationship. So same thing when it comes to a car. Like, now when you go to a dealership, you're going to be looking for, are these interest rates too high? Does this have what I need? Like, does it have AC? Does it, like, how many kilometers does it have? Like, how expensive is it? Like, whatever it is, you're going to need to look and see what you need. And in order for you to know what you need, you need to look at your past, for one, but also to understand that the only way you're going to get better at driving a car and having a good car experience is you actually trying, you actually doing. And the same thing goes for relationships. Like, there is just going to be things that you're not going to be able to heal when it comes to being in a relation to another person other than actually being in that relationship. There's so many things that you don't get triggered about when it comes to someone else when you are single. When you are single, yes, things can be great and you're never getting triggered, but when you get into a relationship and triggers start to come up, a lot of people will be like, oh my God, no, I can't be in a relationship. Or no, you could work through those triggers and you can see why it is you're getting triggered in the first place, and you can learn how to deal with them. You can learn how to transform them. You can heal so that you can have what you want, which is a relationship. Hello, we are relational human beings. You didn't come into this earth to go live on an island by yourself. That's not how it works. That's not how we have evolved. That is just not what it is. It's okay that you're getting triggered, but it's like how you respond to that trigger is what's most important. And so I truly do think once you start to become very, very aware of who you are in relationships, who you are in general, it's going to help you be able to develop empathy to understand when other people show up in a certain way in relationships, whether that be friendships, romantic partners, your parents, whatever. You can understand, oh, it makes sense why they really, really love freedom, or it makes sense why that person's very anxious. And usually that really annoys me because they're so goddamn anxious and they want me to like constantly be reassuring them and whatever, but I can understand why. Now, this is not to say, of course, you're going to aid them to, not heal in a way. Obviously, you need to have certain boundaries, but it's so much easier in life when you can understand other people and how they show up to help you navigate on what should you do in that relationship. Should I accept it? Should I work with them? Or is this person just not for me? But on top of that, for you not to get so triggered by people just being themselves, understanding that there's incompatibilities, not taking things so personally as well. That's another thing. When, let's say you're with a guy who is clearly pretty avoidant, they want a lot of freedom, they are clearly not wanting to commit, you don't have to take it personally like it's you and you're not a good person, or like they don't like me and I'm not pretty enough, or like I'm not X, Y, and Z. No, simply they have wants and needs. Let them be, okay? Understand that you have wants and needs as well. This also can help you get out of toxic cycles and behaviors when you realize a person who's showing up toxically in your relationship, they're most likely not going to change their ways until they work on their side of their relationship, their internal relationship towards themselves. But also you can see how you would be a match to that person as well. And you can decide whether you want to change, you want to heal. And what ends up happening when you want to change and heal is that person usually goes away, or that person can conform. It depends. But in general, you will bring yourself up to a healthier status in a relationship in general. It's what's happened to everyone who does it. It's happened to me. It's amazing. It can definitely be a lot of work. And I think this also can just help you become the change. When you understand yourself in relationships and people, you tend to have more confidence within yourself. You tend to not take things personally. You tend to go for exactly what you want. You tend to stop being so afraid to set boundaries and communicate, which is what you need in relationships anyways. And you stop looking towards everyone else to change, and you just become that change. And you show yourself what happens when you change is there becomes a reflection. When you're at this higher status, when you're at this higher value, when you take care of yourself, when you love yourself, you will start to attract people who are on that same frequency. But what we want is we want the shiny object, we want the healthy relationship, but we're not looking internally into see how we are attracting this person, how we are also playing a role in this toxic relationship. It always takes two. So I hope this episode made you think a little bit more about yourself and how you show up in relationships. Understand that it's a journey. Understand that I have absolutely been there. Like really, I've had to do a lot of work when it comes to my relationships, and I'm at a very good spot in my relationships right now because of this work that I have done. I do think getting the book, The Power of Attachment, can be very helpful to understand yourself deeper because there are different attachment styles based off of your childhood. And it obviously gives you ways in which that you can respond differently to new things in your life. I also just think cultivating a healthy, deep relationship with yourself can be very beneficial for you to pour into yourself, for you to build up your confidence, your self-worth, to have goals, to have projects, to have a life, to have friendships, especially female friendships if you're a female, for you to take time to detach, especially if you're anxious, testing out your ability to go and have fun and to be free and to take your mind off of a person or having that spotlight on everyone else but yourself, becoming that main character, romanticizing your life more. These are all little things that will really help you heal that anxious part of you. But also on the flip side, to just own who you are, right? Like for me, I know my history and I know my anxious attachment style, and it can definitely get flared up sometimes depending on the situation. And I have done a very good job at emotionally regulating and like working on myself and whatever, but there's still a part of me that does want security. And so I'm owning that. When I'm communicating my need within a relationship, I am still saying like, actually, yeah, I do still need some reassurance that you are here though. Like I do need that consistency. I am looking for that security, and that's okay that you want that. Of course, by the way, I wouldn't be communicating like that to a man. Just saying, but I just mean in general, like I would be communicating my needs. I wouldn't feel ashamed about that, but I would also understand that there is going to be a time where I need to regulate myself and I need to watch when I get a little bit too triggered. And how you know that is asking yourself, why is it that I'm feeling this way in the first place? When somebody acts a certain way, what does this make me feel? And usually it makes you feel like something that you felt in your childhood. So I think another good resource is to go back and to listen to the nervous system episode and de-stressing, because, you know, even if you're not doing this in terms of relationships, understanding how to heal your nervous system and being in fight or flight and trauma responses and just having practices set up in your day where you are de-stressing and you're self-reflecting and you're journaling and you're having your routines is going to really help you be able to show up in a more confident, healthy way in a relationship. And what I tend to find, especially when it comes to men are attracted to women who have the spotlight on themselves, actually. And I don't mean in a very narcissistic way, like I'm the best, no one else can beat me and this, that, but seriously, like it's so healthy and so attracting when somebody can see you just loving yourself. So that's the takeaway. Love your freaking self and know yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Don't forget, I do have one-on-one coaching, which I will reopen, when I am done with the Stampede. So just follow me on Instagram if you're interested in that. I also have journal guides. I have the Heal to Manifest. I reopen the Abundance Mindset one. I also have Inner Child Discovery Journal prompts. So all the links will be down below. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.